Hello everyone, it is False Mind Reads, and today I bring you a review and discussion about 1, 2, 3, The Crippled God by Steven Erikson. I'm finished Malazan Book of the Fallen. I finished it yesterday. I'm finished Malazan Book of the Fallen. I can't believe it. I started Malazan Book of the Fallen in April 2023. No, in August 2023. They both start with A's. It got me mixed up. August 2023. I was 19 years old at the time. I am now 21 years old. An entire year of my life was shared with this book series. And piece of advice for all of you out there wanting to make a piece of media mean something to you, stretch it. Stretch it, have it coincide with life. If you want to experience it as fast as possible, sure, binging it in like a month will get you the story that you need. But if you stretch it out, you will have experiences that you associate with books. The books will affect your experiences in turn. It's just a great way to experience things, and that's how I experienced this whole series. But this book took me around 23 days to read. I started on November 1st as soon as I finished Dust of Dreams, and then I finished yesterday, which was November 23rd. And I finished it at 11:50. I was like, I'm finishing it today. And so whenever I would take a break from this book, like whenever I would have taken a break, I would just be like, nope. And then I kept going. And you know what? I'm glad. So, I know my last video on Dust of Dreams wasn't too much to say about the actual book, so I'll speak on the actual book this time. I just want to go through some of the characters that I have a little notebook here with the characters and my notes on it. So, the first character is Adjunct Voir Perrin. Adjunct Voir Perrin is one of the most masterful uses of obfuscation that I've seen yet. It's a literary tactic that everyone uses at some points. But for example, when I think of obfuscation from the point of view character, George R. Martin comes to mind because of a set number of point of views. You sometimes, like Stannis, for example, you need to have Davos to see what Stannis is doing, or sometimes you need to, switch it up, and that's awesome. So to have the adjunct kind of be the same thing, where you see, you see her from behind a curtain, right? You see her shadow, and then slowly the curtain is revealed, but she has there's nothing there for you to read. And then you very slowly get peeled away the layers of obfuscation until you're still not seeing her, but you have this image of how other people see her, and each person sees her in a slightly different way, which allows you to build this picture, this puzzle piece, this jigsaw of what this person, who this character is. And in the end, it just works, right? It just works. She is everything, and I can't wait to get to the Witness series, and I can't wait to read those books because learning about the effects that she has on the world is going to be interesting. Next up is Fiddler. Fiddler is my favorite character. Has been since book 2, still is. He's just that guy. He's just that guy. And in this book, they really give him his flowers. The only thing is, right? The only thing is, and I think that Esselmont has the chance to fix this, is that they say in this book that he was Whiskey Jack's best friend. And I don't know, it's been a year since I've read, was it Gardens of the Moon, right? But I don't remember it being like that. I remember Whiskey Jack kind of being solitary, and if he had to rely on anyone, it wasn't Fiddler. But he did trust Fiddler to go with Callum and stuff. So I guess, but he just he's great. He's great. I think he's great up till like in this book and Dust of Dreams, he kind of gives away the spotlight to the rest of the Bone Hunters, and he kind of shares the spotlight with the rest of the army that we focus on. So, I mean, he stops being central, as he's as central as he can be while sharing the spotlight with the rest of the army, right? He's second only to, I'd say he's second only to the Adjunct herself in centrality in the army plotline and the Bone Hunters plotline. And he's my favorite character. I just love that guy. The last scene of this book, him just fishing and basically having that like parent conversation with a kid, and knowing that if he tries to dissuade him, it's just gonna lead him down that path. Yeah, wonderfully handled. Tool, Onos Toulon, the thing with Erikson, some of Erikson's characters is so how a story usually does things, right? Like, think of Lord of the Rings, right? The goal is to get to this place, and the story is about getting to that place. Erikson has a lot more, I don't want to say realistic, but he has a lot more of a disappointing style of writing. Like, he'll be like, the goal is this. And then you encounter another obstacle that rebounds the character off into 1,000 different directions that you didn't know you needed. And Tool had that one of those ones where I can't help but feel disappointed. Right? I think of how his plotline would have gone if it wasn't for the betrayal at the hands of the white-faced Barghast. But there is no universe, right? There is no story where that doesn't happen. And so to take what I have complaints that about what happened, but not any formal complaints. Just like, well, I would have liked if he was happy. I would have liked if everyone was happy. But he got a good ending, which I don't completely understand the Hitan stuff. But I'm assuming it's one of those, like, the bridge burners have a little bit of humanity left, and then leave it at that. But, yeah, I like Tool. He's cool. But you know what? And then you have Perrin. Perrin, I think I never quite got Perrin when I was reading the books that he was in, and that's because specifically I didn't understand. Last time he appeared in a major role was book 3. Book 3, I'd say, in a major role. And I didn't get Erikson's character writing back then. I didn't actually get it until book 7. I say I didn't get this series until book 7, and Perrin was one of the main sufferers of that. I didn't understand what he was trying to do, like Erikson, how he was trying to write him. I was like, I don't get you. And then I got it, and I was like, he's not the main character. For one, he was added in a revision of the, I think, original like manuscript for Gardens of the Moon as a novel. As it kept getting rejected, he kept revising and adding and taking out and adding and changing. And I think Perrin was added in there as an audience surrogate. I think it was originally supposed to follow the bridge burners much more closely. I read that, I think, on the wiki. And I think Perrin suffers a lot because he just doesn't have a place in the story for a little while. But the place he does find as Master of the Deck, like, I don't know, in book 3, I didn't get it. I didn't get the fact that the power system is kind of just like loosey-goosey magical. What needs to happen will happen, not in a convenient or like easy way, but it will. What needs to happen for the story to end will happen, not for the story to work, but to end, right? To get from one point to another. And I think that his thing, I think his big feat in this book is transporting his army. That is an insane feat. You ask, how did they get back from Colonnades to there? I mean, first of all, he transported the host, which was massive, right? And then he shrunk the host, and he had a few hundred bone hunters tacked onto that with Conundral Burnt Tears, and then you just travel back through Warren, and it makes complete sense, right? That was a big question, is how do they get back? Perrin. Simple as that. And then Stormy and Gessler, they're next on my list. I also didn't get Stormy and Gessler, right? It's not that there's nothing to get with these characters. They're exactly what they seem like, but it's just mostly the ascendancy thing that I didn't quite understand. And that's before I realized that this series it's not to understand this, it's kind of a vibes thing. Like, ascendancy is not immortality, but it's not immortality. It's not, you're not chosen. It kind of just happens to you, and it happened to them when they're they got Hercules, to where their mortal flesh just gets like burned off, and they're left with this undercoating of bronze hue, and for them to be selected kind of makes sense, right? Because they're like beacons of power to get selected as the mortal sword and such. They're beacons of power, and it's like, okay, yeah, I understand it. And to see them, Stormy taking care of Sin, and I guess I'll rope Sin in here too. I think Sin is in a category of child characters in this book that is kind of meant to illustrate the quote from book 2 from Deadhouse Gates. Children are dying. The injustice of the world can be summed up in those 3 words. Children are dying, right? Sin, basically, I think that if you actually think about it, I think this is a brilliant thing that Steven Erikson did. But to oppose Omos Phalak, whatever, to oppose the Jagut, humans are aspected to fire, which makes complete sense. When I realized that, I was like, that makes so much sense. At least the Amas are, but the Amas are, anyways, humans. Humans, I'd say like the Homo species is aspected to fire, because of course we're like the guys who made fire in our world. It's such a genius thing, and sin is what happens when humanity, raw, fiery humanity, is unbound by morality, by laws, by society, by expectations, by like everything. She is the fire, right? She is a fire personified at the end. And for Stormy, who has always been, redhead, to take care of that and to die in the process, it just sucks. It just sucks. There's nothing cool about it. There's nothing fun about it. She was going to burn the whole world down, and someone needed to stop the kid. Nothing fun about that. And Gessler, he didn't have a chance. He didn't stand a chance. Barehanded against the Forkrel Sale. What's her name? Sister Sister R. He did not stand a chance, and it was sad, but the connection that him and Ben and here I have it written down, Ben and Roach, the connection that they have to those 2 Marines is just. I really need to reread this series, because I have memories when you mention them reviving them. I'm like, oh yeah, that's that, okay. But there's so much in this series that a year has stripped away from me. The year reading it just stripped away from me. Next is Briss Benedict. Now, Briss is. He is one of those characters where I kind of wish. I think we got enough, but there's part of me that wishes he had a more substantial role to play. But he doesn't. He never would. I don't see a world in which he does, but that doesn't stop me from wanting him to have more of a heroic thing, even though this is not the series for that. And his whole thing with the names and evoking the name of the forgotten Forkrel Sale god is just so powerful emotionally. But he's not even the best thing to come out of that god, right? I'll get to them later. And then we have Gruntle, and Gruntle Gruntl's actually like one of those characters that I still don't fully understand. I'm kind of operating off of my emotions and my vibes of what his story evoked within me, plus some of the like evidence and what else is being said. It's just I don't quite fully understand it. But so he was chosen by Trake, and so in the series, there's Fenner, the god of war, Trake as the god of war replacing Fenner, but Fenner's still alive. You have the Wolves of Winter, who basically, that's 4 gods of war. And by the end, I think there's only 2 left, because they kill one of the Wolves of Winter, and Fenner dies. Kind of famously, that he's known for dying, basically. And Trake selected Gruntle, who was not possessed, but his mind was warped to take him into the path of Kilava, who was trying to ready herself to fight at the gate of the dragon's realm. And they fought, and he died. And I didn't really get him, like, he was fine in book 3 for me. He really shined in book 8. But he was fine in book 3. I liked him in book 8. And in this book, I went back to being like, what's happening? He's dead. I don't feel a whole lot. That sucks. I could see this people, like, for me, Trull Sangar's death in book 7 really rocked me. I could feel, like, I could see if someone said, oh, Gruntle's death did, like, what Trull did for you. I could see that. But to me, I just didn't quite understand it. And I think I'll do another, when I reread it, I'll try and, like, focus on Gruntle and see all the stuff I missed. Because it's not that I didn't understand it, but, like, I understand everything that happened and that led up, and I understand that there's something that I'm probably missing, some part, some line, some thematic thing. Anyways, the Elder Gods, so that would be Kilimandros, Knuckles, Errant, Mayal, Draconis. I think that one interesting thing is this story is not only about the players who take part in the events, but also the ways that you kind of strip elements away. Like Draconis and who else was it? It was Draconis and Rud Al, Uranus' son, who were the ones who you had to like get away from the fight. You had to get them away because they would just cause too much chaos. And good plans are like that. They don't just include what is going to be there, but what's not going to be there. And I think that, not everything that happened in this book was part of Shadowthrone's plan, but quite a bit was. The goal of his plan was achieved. But, like, getting Draconis to stay out of it when it probably could have helped, like, for him to be there, and also getting Rudd away from it was, like, an inspired choice. And Mayal, he's the GOAT. He is the GOAT of the Lether plotline every time he's there. He seems like such a chill dude. And then you read Return of the Crimson Guard and you're like, oh god, he sent those people to their deaths, to a salty wasteland. Oh god. And then Kilimandros and Knuckle and even Opon, the Opon twins make a reappearance. And the Errant, they just have such interesting plot lines because, like, the Errant I think is one of the most integral and interesting characters because I completely missed him in the 5th book. Like, I did the exact thing that he was afraid of happening. People underestimated him and forgot about him and pretended like he wasn't anything. And then he was like, I'll show you, and he's gonna die for showing us. Like, what a guy. Kilimandros, I think that reading not only the Karkanos trilogy, but the prologue for Reaper's Gale will help with that a lot, because I remember when I was like, she's not a real person. She's just like, she's dead, right? And then you find out she's alive. And then she starts actually doing stuff, and you're like, I don't quite fully get this character. There's something I'm missing. Because I was under the assumption that she wouldn't matter, so I was not discarding information, but I wasn't saving it to like important memory. Yeah, and then that I guess will bring me to Ruthann Good and Quick Ben. And I want to cover these guys together because they are both very clearly cast off of gods. We got the confirmation that Desambre and Traveler, who is Decimel Tour, are two different beings. Desambre and Decim can walk up to each other, shake each other's hands because they are two separate beings. And it is clear that Quick Ben, not his body, but, well, I don't know. Basically, there is a personality within him, a person within him, a soul within him, that is Ben Alphonse Delat. I don't think it's his body, right? That's why Shadow Throne doesn't notice him. But that's why when he introduces himself, there's some sort of cast-off of some sort of god, which I think is going to get explained, if I read the wiki right, in Carcanos 3, along with Ruthann Good. But yeah, those are very interesting characters. Now it's like eye-opening to see who else in the series is a cast-off of someone ascended to godhood. It's very possible, like, because when I'm thinking about this, I'm like, well, they earn the worship of a certain people, right? So I'm thinking about Desambre. What probably happened, for example, Shadow Throne and Cotillion, when they sat on the throne and ascended themselves to godhood, they probably didn't leave behind any mortal vessels, right? They probably just took it with them and basically transformed themselves into whatever they wanted. Yeah, just weird thing. And then Callum, you know what? I'm not gonna lie to you. Callum might be one of my like least favorite Malazan characters, just because of how prominent he was for so many books. I enjoyed the series much more when he stopped being a main character, and I'm not saying that's his fault. I think it's a very kind of shitty coincidence because right when he stopped being a main character, I started getting the series, and I enjoyed book 7, book 8, book 9, and book 10 like a lot, like more than I enjoyed book 1 through 3 and like, you know, book 6. I really loved book 4 and 5, but like book 7, 8, 9, 10 just hit versus okay, hit, okay, hit, like, you know what I mean? So Callum kind of suffered in my mental image, and when he came back as like an actual like character, I think it's funny because the Forquer Sale are so used to being on top that they're not prepared for sneak attacks, right? I think that's funny. I part of me wants to say, come on, bullshit. Like, they're just gonna sit there and let themselves get killed. Yes, they are. They have ruled over this land for, I think, 100 years or something. They're pretty confident. They're overconfident for sure. In their ability with their voice, it makes complete sense that they're able to take so much of them out by just being like, whoosh, whoosh, and being like, and then like, what even happened? What even happened? It's like playing a game of COD where you peek around a corner and you're dead in 2 seconds. And you're like, I didn't even get a chance to do nothing. Like, come on. Yeah, some of you got that reference. Who else? The Assail themselves, they were cool. I think that for being introduced so late into the actual story, like being properly introduced in book 10, they really worked. It's a very obvious that Penny and Damin in book 3 was setting up for these guys. You know, it's very obvious that book 10 and book 3 are very similar. Because in book 3 you have a non-human who is enslaved, basically, a group of humans to use as soldiers. He has an elite guard, and he makes allies with other non-human races to try and take over, like just like Panion and just like the Forquer Assail. And it's really funny because you have the Bone Hunters and the Bridge Burners, and they both basically all die. And the people who make it out, like literally, what was it, a few hundred bone hunters left. That's horrible. That's horrible. But yeah, and it makes for a good parallel. And it makes me excited to read book 3. And if anyone comes out of this series saying book 3 is the best, I'm seriously questioning you now, because there's no way you read the same Crippled God that I did. You read the same Toll the Hounds that I did, right? You read the same Midnight Tides too? Okay, maybe you just don't like the same story elements as I do. And then Hellion and Urub finally getting together. Thank you. And they both survived too. Yes. It's so good. And then Torrent and Sedek. I want to talk about Torrent. He's a goat. He's earned goat status. He's like a teenager, right? I don't think that's really, the emphasis is properly placed on that, which I think is by design, because in this world there is no teenagers. There is child, man, right? It's like that meme where it's like Twitter, how Twitter sees age. 17, drooling baby, 18, Giga Chad, right? That's kind of how the Malazan world sees children. Torrent is a teenager. Sedek is a teenager. These are children. Not much older than Grub and Sin. And they go through it. Torrent, even though he dies at the end, he is my MVP of this book. He took care of a CV. He stood up to an elder goddess. Yes, bro. I love me some Torrent. And he's just, when Mappo and everyone, and Gruntle and everyone says, we don't care, we'll let these children go with you because you'll kill us otherwise. He says, I'm not going to let these children go. And he just gets it. Some part of me, one thing I would like to see is a lot more, in a hypothetical, short story, I would love to see Tool as, a mortal amass before the events of Book 9, and Torrent. I'd like to see them interact and talk about Talk and just all that he was. It's something that my headcanon can cook up. Sedek dying, it's one of those times where it's really just there for the tragedy. And there's no reason for her dying. There's no reason for a lot of things to happen in real life and in these books. She just dies because of the whims of animals. And oh man, the animals, the wolf gods, so well handled. It's obviously a play on how different sects of religions can have disagreements. It's the wild mean this to the wilds mean 3 different things to each 3 of the shield anvil, the destriant, and the mortal sword, and how that can fracture even the most fervorous people. Who else? Corbass and the reintroduction of Haboric Light Touch. Dude, Haboric, he is one of the people who died so early on, before I kind of really got it, right? And I say so early on, but no, he died in one of those times where that was a crushing thing. And to see him come back, and I caught him. I caught his cameo where he didn't say his name, but he's the guy with the hands underground, and he's doing that, and that's him. And for him to be locked in with Corbass, I don't know, Corbass, I don't know, it's poetry, it rhymes, right? It's just such a good plot line that took books and books to finish, and it was worth it, because I love that old toad, man. Oh man, he's great. And withal, and the whole, I think honestly my favorite part of this book, besides the snake, which I'll get to them later, besides the snake, was the battle for the first shore. I think the battle for the first shore, it was kind of the backbone of the book for a long time. My problem with one chapter battles, that the one that happens, or the 2 that happen in the 3, The 4 that happened in the last 2 chapters is the fact that 4 battles happen. You have the Blocado and the Lethri. You have the Kachan Shamal and at the Spire. You have the Bone Hunter regulars and then the Bone Hunter Marines. And sharing the spotlight like that really kind of muddies the water. I get why it has to be done, right? It's already a huge book. You can't have 25 pages for each battle to conclude. Like, you can't have 25 pages more for each battle. I get it, right? But it doesn't stop the battle for the First Shore from being the most epic battle for me in this whole series. It tops everything. It tops Yucatan. It tops Corral. It tops even the one in the 3rd book, the Middle Siege. It tops everything. It's just so epic in the way that the humanity and the raw, like, fire of humanity is put on full display, and it humbles, like, it destroys the Leo San, and it humbles the Andy, and it just, the fact that there's only a few hundred left, and the moment where Yadan looks up and says, "I'm home," oh my god, my heart. Like, he is such an amazing character. And then the snake is by far and away the best thing that Steven Erikson has written in this series for me, right? The events of Bedell and Sadik and Rudd, or no, not Rudd, Rut, and Held. Now I gotta explain it, right? So when I told my mom about this plot line, she kind of looked at me and she went, "It's all fake, you know that, right?" And I said, "I know it's fake, but you know those commercials that's like, donate $1, save an African child's life," and it's like, okay, and then they show the pictures of them, and their stomachs are swollen and they're like emaciated, and that's what the snake was. And while you can ignore the obvious appeal to emotion that are those commercials and be like, "You are trying to extort me right now, like, stop doing that. That is not eliciting compassion, that is eliciting annoyance," because it's like putting a sad puppy in your face and being like, "Aren't you sad by this obviously sad thing that I'm only showing you to make you sad?" Well, yeah. Aren't you sad about this? Like, it's obviously sad, but he's not showing it to make us sad. He's showing it to make us feel compassion. And he does. And it hits so hard because, like, behind every poverty statistic and every homelessness statistic, there is usually a child suffering. And it's one of the, like Erikson says, it's one of the great injustices of our world. And to be faced with that, to put words to that, to put like Erikson's words to that, it's crushing every time. It's crushing. My favorite scene in the entire series is when Sadik has these things in his bag, and Bedell is like, "Put those away. Leave those behind. What even are those things?" And he's playing with, and he has them down in front of Ruthan Good and in front of the adjunct. And Ruthan bends down and says, "Let me put these toys away from you." And Sadik looks to Bedell and he goes like, "Toys?" And Bedell goes, I'd forgotten what toys are." Oh my god. Ooh. It's too much, man. It's too much. It's so fucking good. It's so good. It's so good. And I think that I said this last time, but one of the greatest tragedies is that people will read this series and get up to book 3 and say, "This is not for me." And you know what? It probably isn't. That's the thing, is that it just isn't for you, and you can't connect with it, and you'll never get to experience what I've experienced. And that's sad. That's deeply moving for me. Another thing that I really liked was hold on. Okay. Moving on from like characters, but to like scenes that I really loved. It was one thing I loved is the discussion of the series, kind of the meta discussion about the actual Book of the Fallen in the title. Who, like, Fiddler at first, I think there's people before him, but it's Fiddler's discussion around page 400 of this book of writing a Book of the Fallen, and then it's the Crippled Gods, like, promise to write a Book of the Fallen, and then realizing that book is this book, and that you've been a part of the story the whole time. You're like, there's something with fiction where fiction exists and we exist. It exists. And not often does the fiction acknowledge us and include us in its ethos, right? Usually it exists and we appreciate it from afar. But this series, it not only acknowledges you as a reader, it says that you are serving an important role. When Tavoir says the Bone Hunters will go unwitnessed, that heroism will go unwitnessed, she's unaware that she is a character in a book, right? She's unaware that we are witnessing it right now, and that we are the ones who will carry on this fictional legacy, right? And it's such a unique thing. You know, you don't get meta narratives like that a lot. Another thing that really got me was Karsa's compassion towards the guy from book 3. I had to look him up on the wiki. Monog. His compassion and his kind of, like, because Karsa has always been like, I will destroy the cities. And, I mean, he's hinted at it, and I'm sure that if I went back and read it now, I would definitely pick up on, oh, I see what Karsa was saying. He's saying this all along. But cities in this book is illustrated just plainly. It's the wanton suffering that's all around you that you do nothing about, right? It's the fact that someone can die in the street, and instead of doing anything, you're stepping over him. Yeah, it's his compassion to a dying man. It's Karsa Orlong too, right? It's Karsa. It's the barbarian, and yeah, the charge of the bridge burners, to save. Who was it? To save the bone? No, to save the Amas and the 14 Jagut and the Whiteface and all those. Man, that's pretty good. I like me some bridge burners. And when the parent siblings, when they reunited, bro, and it just the crying of I lost her, like, oh man. Tavoir is an amazing character, man. And then when the snake met the Bone Hunters, everything with the snake is great. The snake and Icarius, right? The snake, like, leaving Icarius, the rediscovery of toys, Bedell calling the shards down, but the meeting the Bone Hunters behind rediscovery of toys has to be one of my favorite snake scenes, where the children of the Burn Tears, who are no older, like barely, like, whereas the people from the snake are, like, I'd say like 10 to like 5, right? And some even younger. But for these are like early teenagers, right? They're just early enough to be considered kids still. But for them to immediately go among and give the last of their water, again, those scenes just get something like boiling. Like, my heart just starts melting in my heart when I try and conjure those images to mind. And then Mappo and Icarius, oh my god, Mappo's whole plotline in this book is just, like, I think as soon as he's in the Glass Desert, his plotline is non-stop amazingness. With him arriving at Icarius and realizing that while he was in the desert in Seven Cities, seeing like, oh, I think we're close now because it's a desert. He was looking for Icarius, where he stored all his memories, and for him to go there and encounter Bedell, like a memory of Bedell. And the very last thing, the thing that made me actually weep tears, right? I don't tear up as much as I feel like I'm gonna tear up. I don't actually have tears in my eyes usually. But the thing that made me weep, shed a few tears, was when Akarium and Ubalala are burying Mappo, and he says, I've forgotten something, and then he sees those fucking partery sherds, and he goes, I think I've remembered something. Shit, man. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good book. I can't even lie to you. It's pretty good. Thank you for watching my review of The Crippled God. I gave it 5 out of 5. It's one of the best books I've ever read. It will stay with me forever. This series has changed my life for the better. It's made me a more considerate and compassionate person. I don't think there's anything else to say. Thank you for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe. And hope you're having a good day, night, rain, or shine.